Good evening, my name is Helena Wallen-Miller. I am Chair of the Moore County School Board. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. How many of you were at the last Area 1 and Area 2 meeting that we had a month ago? Okay, so you've been through this process. I did want to offer just a few introductory remarks in my welcoming remarks. First of all, I do want to thank you for making time out of your busy schedules. I know the end of the year is full of lots of activities. I have a 5th and 6th grader, so I know what you're going through. And I appreciate the time that you're spending with us today, giving us the input that you need on this plan. Just a few reminders about how we got here and why we're doing redistricting and why we're having these meetings. When we started looking at our capacity about 4 or 5 years ago, and even before that, it was clear that there were needs in our schools in terms of size, that we had outgrown some of our schools. Some of our schools were significantly aged and needed to be replaced. And so over many years of work with our county commissioners to determine how to pay for this and what exactly the schools to be built and in what order, we came to an agreement a few years ago to do a bond to build 4 elementary schools. And actually the bond was to build 3 of them, and the county commissioners are paying for another one. McBeats Creek was the first one out of the gate, and that one is, as all of them have a capacity of 800 students, which is much bigger than the size of most of our elementary schools today. The need then for redistricting has to do with when you open a new school, you do have to look at who will be attending that school and making some decisions on that based on data that you have and study. We did a study with NC State to look at how demographics are changing, how growth in Moore County is changing, and what impact that's going to have on schools. I know from a personal side, I've been here for 14 years, and Moore County has changed a lot in just those 14 years. Those of you who have been here longer, who've been here longer than 14 years? Okay, yeah, a lot of you. It has changed even more for you all. So growth patterns have changed, where people are living has changed, traffic patterns has changed, all of that has changed, and the number of students that are coming has changed. So we're excited to be able to open these 4 new elementary schools with a larger capacity. 3 of them are in new locations. They're not even where they were originally, so we have to look at that as well. The other thing I want to say is that 2 of our schools are technically in Southern Pines. McDeeds Creek is technically in Southern Pines, and it is serving Area 1. So we have to look at that and what impact that has on our attendance and see how to most efficiently utilize all that space. Another phenomenon that we're having here is while there's significant growth in the southern part of the county, for those of you who are here from the Northmore area, from Area 2, there's also been some decline in population there. And so looking at space needs that we have in the south versus space availability in the north, we have to look at that to see what makes sense. All of this is based on using our resources that we are given by the county to the best of our ability, to really utilize taxpayer dollars efficiently and effectively to populate and operate our schools, and to give each of our children and all of our students a meaningful program for them and meaningful way to learn in a safe environment. And that's what's so exciting about these new schools. The process so the Board of Education has directed the staff to come up with a plan. What is this districting plan going to look like? What does the student assignment look like based on these new schools? And then the process, we tasked them with coming up with a process. And the process also looked at what our guiding principles were, and the Board of Education has decided what the guiding principles were and are, and we'll talk through that today in the presentation that you'll hear. The process has been decided as well that there will be we had some initial forums, and then there is an advisory committee that is providing some advice to the superintendent and staff. They're looking at questions that are coming in, they're looking at themes, they're providing some feedback on that. They're not necessarily drawing the maps, but they are providing a lot of thought and process behind that, or ideas behind that. Staff are looking at the maps with our consultants who you'll meet today, and they're looking at individual lines. We're then bringing the maps here, and the purpose of these meetings are really to get individual review of the maps. What we hope is for individual families to be looking at these maps, thinking about the impact that it has on you, and to provide some feedback on what that means for you individually. So we're looking forward to your input on the current draft, and that's what we're looking for today. Then it's going to go back to another round. There'll be a lot of work this summer, and we'll go through that process a little bit later. So that is the basic process for today. We do have some of our board members here. Can you raise your hands? Ed Dennison, Pam Thompson, Betty, Dr. Betty Will-Brown, Stacey Caldwell, Mr. Cunningham, Bruce Cunningham, and we have one on vacation. Ms. Carter's on vacation. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Walker. Thank you.
Good evening. Clicker's not working. We'll just do it the old fashioned way. Thank you for coming out again. Just as Chair Miller said, we know there's a lot going on, and we really sincerely appreciate your engagement in the process. I want to very quickly walk us through our agenda tonight. Before I do, I just want to make sure we take the opportunity to introduce our principals who are with us this evening. They also can serve as folks that you can talk to and engage with once we break out and look at the maps and back. Principals, you would stand up so I have the opportunity to introduce you. We have Ms. Diane Pope, Principal High Falls Elementary, Ms. Debbie Warren, Principal Carthage, Ms. Norma Neal, Principal Santa's Farm Life, Andy McCormick, Principal Union Pines, Jenny Wiley, Principal Elise Middle, Lisa Scott, Principal of Fast Lakeview, Kim Bullard, Principal Robbins Elementary, Melanie Jones, Principal Cranes Creek, and Clarkson Hussey, Principal of Westmore. So we appreciate them being with us. Oh, I missed Tracy Metcalf, our host principal here at New Century Middle. She's gonna get you for that later. Tracy, thank you for hosting tonight. We appreciate your hospitality and hosting for us this evening. I also want to take the opportunity to thank any members of the advisory committee. You heard Chair Miller mention their critical work with us and advisement throughout the process. If you serve on our advisory committee, please stand so we can recognize you and just thank you for your service. Let's give them a hand. So tonight we're going to walk through, talk a little bit about ground rules. We'll turn over to Dr. Grims in just a second to talk about our ground rules for this evening. We're going to have the opportunity for Laura and Michael to present our second draft, look at the data tables, look at the maps for that, talk about that process a little bit. We're then going to break out for about 30 minutes in the back where we have our area map. We have a blow up of area 1 and 2. We have the full district maps. We also have the density maps in the back you can look at and provide feedback via the comment question cards and via the QR code you got there in the comment and question cards right to our online portal. We're then going to regroup and we're going to respond to as many of those question and comment cards as we can. Then adjourn promptly once we work through that process, no later than 7:45. And so with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Grims to talk about our core purposes and ground rules for tonight.
Welcome, everybody. Tonight's goal is to gain information. The stated advertised purpose of the meeting is to gain information on draft 2 of the redistricting plan as it pertains to areas 1 and 2. And so our focus is only on that. And we recognize, and we hope that everybody recognizes that this is draft 2 of a process that's going to yield another draft 3. And even that is going to be followed by a draft 4 this fall. We recognize that this process, as Chair Miller mentioned earlier, has already been approved by the school board. So our focus is on the plan. We want your technical feedback on your experience based on where that current draft is. Some of you I know at the last meeting that we had, there may not have been a change between now and then. And you say, well, I already mentioned that before. Well, go ahead and mention it again because it's still rolling. And even though you might be on the record previously, you want to get more on the record again to make sure that that's updated. Doesn't mean that we can accommodate all those, doesn't mean we can answer all the questions, but it does mean that we want to hear from you now because it might just kind of raise that again, just to make sure that we revisit it. All viewpoints have equal opportunity to be heard, and that's the reason why we're using the charrette format and everybody writing down their questions. We want to make sure that everybody's question is delivered exactly the same way, and that by you writing it down, it's automatically on the record. These orange cards are taken by Cindy Parker, and she types all of them out. They get put into a chronicle for the advisory committee and the staff. We review all of them, and then that influences our thinking when later on we're looking at these maps and making decisions about where best to put lines, and then weigh that against the guiding principles that Laura Evans will review here shortly. If we get to an open forum at the end, not open forum, but when we read the cards, when we get everybody back here after looking at the gallery walk, we'll come back, we're going to read questions off the cards and give answers. And even though we don't have a big audience tonight, we want to do it exactly the same way in every meeting. No matter what the size of the audience, we want to make sure there's a consistent pattern in how we respond to the questions. And so that's the reason why we're going to follow the same rules from one meeting to the other, with an emphasis on any public meeting of civility and respectfulness. With a small audience, that may not seem to be as important, but with a real large audience, you just basically got to say the same thing no matter what the size of the audience is, just to convey to everybody that we just follow the same rules from one meeting to the next, okay? All right,
We're not
thank
having
you.
an open forum like we did last time.
Because we learned from that exactly how to establish the rules and enforce the rules, and so from that experience, we learned to be consistent from one meeting to the next. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know what you guys are missing about community input.
Sir, we actually please honor the this is your first warning. Please respect.
And you guys sidelined it. We take time off work, we
This
lose
is your
money.
second warning,
We
and I'm
get
gonna
paid here to
I'm
come
gonna
here
potentially have to call this meeting.
to potentially have our input heard, and we get sidelined. We don't come here to watch the Bob and Timmy show. We come here to ask questions that are not being answered online in these forums. I've written 4 emails to the board already. She responded once, saying, I'll get back to you later. Haven't heard anything since. So I'm wondering why we're coming here and writing a card face to face. You decide if you want to read it or not, because I have information that most people don't know about what you're saying behind closed doors to teachers versus what you're saying in front of the video camera right here in this forum. And I think that needs to be heard.
Mr. Castleberry, please, I need to ask you to be quiet. We have a lot of folks here who came to look at the plans. We have a process.
I understand that. And the process last time was an open forum.
Hey,
So if you don't have any cojones to sit here
I'm
and
not
answer our questions.
It was not an open forum.
You're interrupting the meeting. It's not going to be heard anyway, so what's the point? It's not what my complaint. It's a sham process.
He's not satisfied.
Everybody in here.
Well, then if you're not satisfied with the ground rules now, I'll give you the opportunity to leave the system.
I'd like to hear the meeting, and if everybody keeps standing up and interrupting it, then we can't continue the meeting.
So I'm going to assume that you're still here, that you're willing to follow the ground rules. Just like any other public meeting. Thank you.
Just a quick reminder before I turn it over to Laura. We have all of this information, all of our presentations linked online, including video of the meeting linked online. You can go right there and get that information, as well as continual development of FAQs, frequently asked questions, based on common themes arising to the top. We'll continue to add to those and add them online. Tonight's presentation will also be online, as well as the video of it. Will be online. And as always, if you're curious about different schools, the potential school that your child might be moved to based on the draft, as we keep moving through that, you can always go online and look at what are they doing at that school, what's the critical work at that school that they're working to continue to improve. Those are what we call school improvement plans. You can always go to those and link to those on our website as well. Just wanted to point that out. Just a quick update on the community feedback we've received so far through the process. We've had over 200 comments and questions that have been added to our online portal. We've had approximately 9,000 emails and letters that we've received. We're compiling all that information. We've shared it with our advisory committee staff that's reviewing that as we continue to revise and refine what we go through each process, the iterative process of the draft. There's been some common questions and themes that Laura's going to hit on in her presentation tonight. There's some questions we simply can't answer, but we're going to always record those and share that information with the advisory committee. And as I noted, we're developing that FAQ site as we move through. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura for her to discuss what she's going to share with you tonight with the draft. Laura?
Tim? Good to be back with you again tonight. Is it on now? I'm doing here. On now?
You can't
Testing?
see. We're still on test.
Testing?
There you go.
Testing.
You're on.
There we go. Testing? Are we on? It's good to be back with you. I'm going to stand over here since the bulk of everybody's on this side. I had a little accident since we were here with dentist. My doctor tells me it was a pretty major accident. The tree branch fell on me and I broke 2 vertebrae and crushed a disc. And I'm lucky to be alive. That's why I'm so thankful to be back here. And I want to say thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for all that you do in our schools here in Warren County. The teachers and the administration can't do what they do with their children without your help, so thank you. I have the pleasure to show you draft 2 tonight. I'll walk you through it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because the bulk of your time will be spent in the back. Looking at the maps, we'll be walking around, talking to you, and answering any questions we can answer one-on-one with you. All right. Tonight we're going to review the guiding principles because everything we do is seen through the lens of the guiding principles that the board established. We're going to talk about what the desired outcomes are because if we don't focus on desired outcomes, we tend to go all over the place, and we don't want to do that. We're going to talk about the comments that we've received about draft 1 from the community, from you guys, from the advisory committee, from the online. We're going to talk about the things that have bubbled up as concerns, a big one being transportation. There's been a lot of questions about, can my student transfer? Can I proactively transfer to the new school, or can I stay at the old school? So we're going to give a little bit of information about what we're calling allowable transfers. And then we're going to talk about the implementation timeline. These schools open over a 2-year period, so everything doesn't happen at one time. So we're going to try to explain when the moves will happen, which years that you might be affected, and then we'll look at the data tables and the maps. Okay? So the guiding principles the board developed in the summer of 2018 or in the spring of 2018, and they said they wanted to have balance among their schools. Balance in utilization was big. Secondary to that, but just as important, was balance demographics, balance programs, balance achievement levels, if at all possible. Those were a goal. Planning, to the extent possible, we're going to use up-to-date information and make sure we're looking to the future so that we don't come back 2 years from now. I just heard a comment from somebody that worked on an assignment plan in another county 2 years ago, and they're already going back to make changes. So up-to-date information so that doesn't happen here in Moore County. Okay? Efficiency, and this is one that's actually bubbling up this time. In regards to bus routes and long bus rides and traffic congestion, okay? So efficiency, and then community. We feel like we're being open and transparent. We've involved you all along. We're reading your comments, we're reading your feedback, we're looking at it, we're incorporating things. You're going to see things that came out of draft 1, the draft 1 meetings, we've incorporated into draft 2, and you'll see that tonight. What we are discovering is that some guiding principles, let's see if this little light's going to come on. There it is. Some guiding principles may conflict. We said that from the very beginning. And some guiding principles may not be fully realized. We said that from the beginning, and here in draft 2, you're going to see that, oh yeah, it's not working like we thought it was going to work. And if we do this, it causes something else to happen. There are conflicting things going on here. So we're going to see that more tonight in draft 2 than we did in draft 1. Remember the desired outcomes that, as the board chair said, we're opening 4 new school buildings. All of them have additional seats. We currently have crowded schools, we have under-enrolled schools, so this is our opportunity to balance the utilization, use those new school buildings, decrease the overcrowded schools, and use your taxpayer dollars wisely. So that's the main focus. Last year we started working on McKeeds Creek. That's the first school that will open. I think it opens this fall. And so we did part of the assignment plan for Kitchens Creek, but we left some unfinished business, so that's also a goal. And then out of the advisory committee, they wanted us to look at all of the elementary schools across the district and try to balance utilization to the extent possible. Look at all the middle schools across the district and try to balance utilization. That's a harder task because a lot of the middle schools are super crowded right now. And then finally, the advisory committee said, to the extent possible, we'd like you to try to balance demographics and balance proficiency across the schools at the elementary and the middle school level. We set out to make no high school changes, but as we worked through draft one and we received feedback, we have made some minor changes in the high school lines. And we've got a second minor change in the high school lines here in draft two. Okay. So those were the desired outcomes. The process, we began by generating some scenarios that were totally based on utilization and let the computer spit it out. Then we reviewed it and we said, oh my gosh, there's too many feeder pattern problems there, so we tried to fix some of those. Then the staff reviewed it, then the advisory council reviewed it, and we produced draft one. Okay? And then we came into you about a month ago and got your feedback. We met again with the advisory council, we met again with staff, and now we're here today with draft two, and then we'll do the same thing for draft three. Okay? That's the process. We're not done. All right. Here's the feedback. Since last we were with you, these are the comments that we received. Lots of concerns about longer bus rides, the need for more buses, and the lack of bus drivers. Lots of concerns about that. Lots of concerns about split feeder patterns, where one elementary might be going to two different middle schools, or one middle school might be going to two different high schools, or possibly three different high schools. A lot of concern about that because that's not been the norm for Moore County. Okay. Traffic patterns, that includes congestion, a lot of emphasis around the Pinehurst traffic circle. I actually drove over there today. I drove all around today. I really wanted to experience it all, you know. But that could be a mess. It could be a mess, a lot of traffic. So a lot of feedback on that. Feedback on split neighborhoods. We've addressed some of that in draft two. We also saw that there's that give and take again. If you try to fix a split neighborhood, it throws off the utilization balance. You see, because there's always some kind of give and take. We're going to give you some information today about the timeline of when the moves happened. They asked us to address as much as possible, allowing kids to change schools early so they can start at their new school. A lot of the feedback was to continue to look at balance, utilization, and demographics if we can. Talk about the transfer policy, how does that work? And then finally, and this came out of every group, concerns regarding school change impact on military families. Moore County's unique, you've got a big military population. And you know, they have things to do this assignments very frequently, and now we're asking them to change schools. So that was a concern that came out of the advisory committee meeting, on the parent meetings, and on the online feedback. All right, the transportation concerns were congestion and long travel times, but as we started looking at trying to fix those things, we realized it was throwing off the balancing of the utilization. Okay, so we are pursuing, Moore County Schools is pursuing a traffic analysis on draft 2 over the summer months. Those things don't happen overnight, it's going to take some time to see, you know, have we created a problem anywhere in the county for traffic congestion, and have we created longer bus rides and the need for more buses. And if any of those negative things happen, then we need to do some changes to draft 3 on that. Okay, so there's a traffic study coming our way. All right, basically to compare draft 1 to draft 2, draft 1 focused on utilization, trying to balance utilization, and trying to make sure we had clean feeder patterns. Draft 2 now is focusing on traffic congestion, student travel, while at the same time looking at utilization and feeder patterns. All right? All right, let's talk about transfers. We're proposing that we have two kinds of allowable transfers, okay? One is proactive transfers, the other is rising grade transfers. Proactive transfer, it means if you have an elementary or a middle or a high school student who 2 years from now is going to be switched to a new school, and you say, can they start at the new school next year, so they don't have to go to one school next year and then switch again, that would be an allowable transfer, okay? And so the proposal is that those would be approved if you ask for it. Proactive. Rising grade transfers, if a rising 5th grader, 8th grader, or a junior or a senior are in that year that they're having to change schools, you could ask for a transfer and request that they finish out that grade span at the school they've been attending. That's a good, very family-friendly, very student-friendly set of guidelines there. We do juniors and seniors because, you know, once those kids get into high school, after that 9th grade year, boy, they are very, very attached to their schools. And it is really hard. I have a 55-year-old brother, and my parents moved him his senior year in high school. My parents are long gone, but Ken still complains about that. So rising grade transfers are important to feel it's family-friendly and student-friendly. So 2 sets of allowable transfers. Now the key is, we already don't have enough buses and drivers. Well, I don't know about buses, but we definitely don't have enough drivers. So these would be approved if you ask for it, but you would have to provide that transportation until the next year when the assignment plan rolls into place. Okay, so, all right. All right, the implementation timeline, Mike's going to slog through this.
As you know, this is a multi-year assignment program, assignment plan taking place over 2019 all the way through 2021. This fall, in August of 2019, McNeeds Creek Elementary will open. The only impact in August of 2019 will be to Area 1. Following that opening in the next year, in August 2020, one of the Area 1 impacts will be McNeeds Creek will enlarge its attendance area to Southern Pines. So an Area 1 school, actually McNeeds Creek is right on the line, but if you consider it an Area 1 school, will have a larger attendance area moving into the Southern Pines district. Also affecting Area 1 and Area 2 in August 2020 are the movements in Draft 2 for the North Fork schools, increasing the attendance area for High Falls, Westmore, and along with that, the high school lines also drop down as well, and all that information is on the maps. In the next year, there's not as many Area 1, Area 2 changes. The one that pops out is really the Bass, Lakeview, and Cameron change. We are able to increase the capacity of Cameron Elementary to provide further relief for Bass Lakeview. All the projections that we see say that the population of Bass Lakeview is going to continue to grow, largely due to military impacts and military family homes. So we're trying to be proactive and provide some relief from Cameron to Bass Lakeview. And I believe that is all. There's also some changes you'll see on the map to Sandhills Farm Life and Carthage. Actually, in Draft 1, if you will recall, Carthage moved down into West Pine Elementary. The the maps that you look at tonight line up the middle school and the high school lines with those draft 1 Carthage lines. So we'll see that in August of 2021 as well.
Thanks, Mike. All right, now, I know you can't do that. I can't even read it from where I'm standing. But I just want to, I think there's hard copies on the table that you can read. And of course, online, a lot of people just won't blow it up on your phone. So, but what I want to show you here is the top set of data is the current situation. The middle set of data is draft 1. And the bottom set of data is draft 2. And what we like to do over here on the far side is we look at minority representation, we look at utilization, and we look at proficiency. And we're comparing the highest to the lowest and the range. And we look at it in draft 1, did we make any improvement there? By improvement, we're reducing the range, we're bringing more balance, okay? And we've done an excellent job from current to draft 1 to draft 2 on balancing utilization. We went from a range of 56 points, a high of 117%, a low of 61% utilization. Super crowded school, very under-enrolled school. To in draft 2 now, we're at a range of 27 points. Feel really good about that, okay? High of 97%, that's kind of high, but a low of 70%. So we went from 61 up to 70. So we feel good about how we balance utilization. Not so good about any changes here in minority representation. We made a little progress here in draft 1, but when you get to draft 2 and you look at the transportation and the congestion and you start making changes on that, and it just threw it off. So really negligible changes on minority representation and negligible changes on proficiency representation. We're not happy about that, but it's hard. These changes are hard to make, okay? What we have done is we've ensured room for growth in the areas of the county where all of the projections say there's going to be more growth. So you're going to see some schools here in Area 1 and in Area 3 that we left the utilization in the 70s because those are the areas where we're anticipating more growth. We want them to have the room for the new students that are coming. And then any other schools, we tried just to balance it across the board. Okay. All right. Now, like I said, I know you can't read it, and you're really more interested in the map and what are the changes now. And Mike's going to walk you through those changes.
Laura, we made clear that a copy of that chart is back there for everybody.
Yes, a copy of the chart is in the back, so you'll be able to read it.
I can see it.
Yeah.
A copy of draft 2, including all the levels, elementary, middle, and highs on the tables back, with the blow-up of areas 1 and 2. So it's even large as we can get. So what I'd like to walk you through is the changes impacting areas 1 and 2 from draft 1 to draft 2. If you have any questions about any of the other changes, I'll be glad to try to answer those when we go back and look at the maps. First thing that we see here is on letter E, a small change in McNeeds Creek from draft 1. This is in connection with some of the transportation inefficiencies that we're trying to deal with in draft 2. So there's a mixing of Pinehurst and Southern Pines Elementary and McNeeds Creek. And so there's a small change in McNeeds Creek for draft 2 to try to address that. As we mentioned, there is going to be a middle school and high school change in the Carthage area, and we'll get there on later maps. Okay, that's all we have.
All right, for the middle schools, the changes we made on the middle schools, for the most part, mirror any of the elementary changes so that we try to keep the feeder patterns clean. But we do, if you could see it, and you can see it, and you don't even wear glasses. That's great. But we've done a fabulous job with utilization. We went from a 65-point range down to a 27-point range. Remember, I said this in the first meeting, if you were here last month, we got a middle school problem on the horizon. Our middle schools are super crowded, okay, but we've done our best to try to balance those. But we've made very little change in balancing minority representation and in balancing proficiency. Those weren't things we actually do purposefully, but we watched those numbers thinking that maybe we could make some balance there, but we didn't make much change. Michael, go over the changes on the map.
So for middle school, once again, we're looking at draft 1 on the left and draft 2 on the right. The change, letter A, was the one I referred to earlier. In draft 1, Carthage comes down a little bit to the south and to the west into West Pine. And the advisory committee looked at that and said, well, that's fine, but we need to line up the middle school and high school lines. So draft 2 does that for this area right here. You can see it there. As New Century comes down into West Pine Middle School. Another change affecting area 1 over here is, if you can see on this area right there, in McNeese Creek's proposed base, the blue part right here in letter D is going to be in draft 2 going to Cranes Creek. So there's a shift from New Century to Cranes Creek in draft 2. And those are the only issues or the only changes to draft 2 on middle school level. I'll go ahead and walk through this. As we mentioned before, high school has only one change in the entire county in between Union Pines here and Pinecrest. Once again, this is an alignment of middle school and high school lines to the Carthage attendance base, and that's the only change for high school. Going back to the data table, this produced a negligible effect on all 3 of the metrics that we're looking at. There was some change, but it's very small.
All right, let's talk about feeder patterns. Currently, all but one of your elementary schools feed as a whole school to middle school. The only one that has a split is Cameron. And all of your middle schools feed as whole schools into a high school. That's the current situation, which is really sweet. In draft 4, in draft 1, we had 4 elementary schools feeding to 2 different middle schools, and we had 2 middle schools feeding to 2 different high schools. We tried our hardest to get that better, okay? Well, we did a little better, but, you know, nothing to really celebrate, because we still have 4 elementary schools that feed to 2 different middle schools. But the good thing about it is that they're fairly large cohorts moving up together. Okay, so it's not like they're going to get to middle school and not see a familiar face. They will. And then one middle school, we did make a little improvement there. One middle school feeds to 2 different high schools. And this one's really a bugaboo, because it's just kind of, it's difficult to solve the problem. We've got an elementary school sort of in the central part of the southern part of your county. And they go one way for middle school and the other way for high school. So it's really not ideal. And we've been looking at it. We've been moving kids this way and that way, moving them to middle school, moving them to high school. And any way you move them, you're overcrowding one school and underloading another. It's just been very difficult. So we're not real happy with that. We're not happy with these either, but it's the way it's got to move here in Moore County with your growth. Okay. All right, so that's an update on the feeder patterns. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike and Laura. Just a real quick review and gallery wall feedback process we'll use and utilize at the last meeting. So if you were here, you're familiar with it. Real quickly, there's tables in the back of the gym. We've got 3 maps on each table. We've got area 1 and 2 below up, so that's a little larger, so you can look at it a little clearer. We also have the whole district map. And then we have what we call a density map that shows where the dense populations are across Cole County. Just for your reference, we also have graph 1P in the back of the gym, so if you want to see the difference between graph 1 and graph 2, as you're looking at the map, you can do that. We'll gather your feedback through those question and comment cards. You can write directly on the QR code that takes you directly to our website. And then we'll gather those cards, and with our remaining time, we'll answer as many of the questions and comment cards as we can. John?
Just for clarity, the blow-up maps for Area 1 are on the tables over on that side. The blow-up maps for Area 2 over here to make it easier for you to know which area you want to look at.
Yes, staff will be roaming around back here. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, as well as the principal. So we'll take 30 minutes.
If I could, the time limit that we have is made for a much larger audience. So as soon as you all are ready and you want to read through some of the questions you've written down, then we'll come on back. So we set aside a time limit, but as soon as you all are ready, we'll come back. So just kind of let us know. If we're wandering around the table, let us know where we stand. We'll come back here and finish up. Thank you.
know. Chicken farm. That's right. That's right. He has to tell me to stay in my lane. I mean, no, go ahead. Go it on. Yeah. Well, what about a star? You work up a star? Reason I'm asking about a star. Yeah, that's you didn't ever see that.
I live on Saturday night. They had stuff. And I walked. And I went that's good. Yeah, it's good.
We'd like to encourage everyone to finish up with last question or comment you want to put on your orange card. And you find Cindy Parker, and turn your card into her. She's the beautiful young lady with the basket who's got the orange cards in. We'll gather up and we'll kind of go through as many of those as we can before we adjourn.
right, thank you. Great conversation, great feedback. We've got a few question and comment cards that Dr. Anderson and I will go back and forth on and answer these questions and consider this feedback as we keep moving forward. First question, how will we be able to ensure program equity in the arts and athletics as you move forward with student assignment? That is something that we've been asked. We've heard that concern for program equity. That's something that we're going to be looking at. And that's something that we know our board is supportive of looking at, keeping program equity across our county if that's possible. And so that is something that we're going to be looking at as we move through this process.
And Tim, excuse me, I'm sorry, but sorry about that. I want to add that it's this group here that really drove that point home last night. And so we don't have an answer yet because that's going to be in the budget process for 2021. So that would be the budget that I would introduce next year, would be to look at what those needs will be after we're done with this process and we see how many children will be in schools and what the interests of those families are that are going to be in those schools. We'll have our feet to the fire on that one. And a lot of that has to do with some of the feedback specifically from this particular group. In the future, will there be any plans for a central middle school for the Northmore district? And historically, those of you that live in the Northmore area that have been around for a number of years, you know that idea was floated a good bit before I arrived. And as I understand it, there was strong community sentiment not to centralize the children in a single middle school. But I've gotten different interpretations of that history over time. Currently, there's no plan for that. And our primary challenge right now is making sure that we have enough children in our Northmore schools to keep the ones open that we have. And I'm certain that should that need arise in the future, then the board would take it under consideration.
Next question. Will Sandias Farm Life be included in the new draft processes for acceptable transfers? If Sandias Farm Life, how it's impacted by the final student assignment plan, it would be part of, based on how it's impacted by that assignment plan, it would be part of the acceptable transfers that were described earlier. Additionally, if any school can be part of the transfer process, the normal transfer process that we currently have in place.
That's right. Also, this one is not so much a question, but it was raised, concern was raised about the rather odd shape of the border between New Century, the border between New Century and Cranes Creek. And I acknowledged to that individual that the planning committee has been studying that, and even though this was brought up before and there wasn't action on it between drafts 1 and 2, that doesn't mean there couldn't be action on it between drafts 2 and 3. So it is important. I hope that if you brought something up before and you didn't see anything come out of it in the draft 2, do bring it up again. There's no guarantee that it's going to happen, but it is helpful to make sure that that comes back up to look at. And this is one that really is still very relevant and is being looked at very carefully.
Another specific question about equal opportunity program. Sandhills Promise students, that's a program from Sandhills Community College, requires 4 dual enrollment classes by graduation. Will they bus students from Northmore to Sandhills to help with participation? Currently, there is an opportunity for us, we have funding to offer a busing from Northmore to Sandhills Community College. That's something we can currently offer and currently provide. There has not been demand for that, but it is something that we can currently offer and currently provide and we'll always look at as we move forward.
And it's driven by student demand. I'd like to know if Dr. Bob receives the compensation, bonus, or other benefit if any of the low-performing schools in the district are brought above failing status, and the answer is absolutely not. He doesn't get it. The state does offer bonuses for principals and teachers as well. So there's performance-based bonuses, incentives for teachers and principals that have been approved by the General Assembly, but no such thing for the superintendent. And to be honest with you, I philosophically, I don't buy into that, and if it were offered to me, I would decline it.
Why would my child be switched to a school 25 miles away when the closest school was only 5 miles away? Heard some great feedback on that tonight. that is something that we have to continue to look at critically. As we go towards the third draft, that's also will be part of when we're looking at doing a deep transportation analysis and traffic analysis. That's also something we have to look at as we move forward to the next draft.
Okay, two interesting questions here. We've been told by some parents that they've been told that if they pay a $2,000 fee, their child can stay where they are, and that's absolutely false, okay? I can tell you that's the first time I've heard of that, and under no circumstances is that. So if that's been said, please discount that. And if somebody's just having fun with that one, I'm glad to be suckered by it. But no, seriously, it's not there. And then, Tim, if I could just add, there are students in the school that the parent is referring to from another country. Are they going to be put back in their, from another county? Are they going to be put back in their district? That's going to depend on the size of the capacity of the school, and given where our middle schools are at, it's not out of the question that we can become more and more restrictive with out-of-county students. The exception would be children of employees, and I don't know, there may be a few others, but there's certainly the children of employees would be about the only one. Students are required to pay tuition if they come from out of county. We really don't have that many, and it's available in the packet that was presented to the school board. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, it's in this
Transfer data?
in
Yes,
the
sir.
appendix.
Yes,
The out of
sir.
county students is in the appendix, which is online, so you can look at it. There aren't that many. They pay tuition. The only exception is a waiver that the board approved recently that applies to what are called underutilized schools, and Westmore and High Falls and Robbins and Elise and Northmore all qualify for that. And so individuals that want to come across the line, those are schools that actually need students, and so that's been waived. There aren't that many of them. It's not really a big cost item, but I do think it gives us the opportunity to get some more students in some of our schools that really could use a few more students.
It seems that a new high school in the southern portion of the county will be needed soon due to the population map and continued problems despite redistricting. Why was this not part of the recent bond? The recent bond represented a priority list of projects that needed to be done first. There was a plan to open up an advanced career center on land adjacent to San Diego Community College that would help with some of the overcrowding by having kids attend the advanced career, the overcrowding at Union Pines High School and Conquest High School, and also benefit Northmore High School. That plan to build that was not able to move forward after the county commissioners withdrew the support for that and then asked for prioritizing the Beach Creek. So that is how that process took place. So this is still something that we know our high schools are overcrowded, and that's partly what makes this a very difficult process.
I've got two questions here, and they sort of align with each other, so I'm going to run them together and answer them together. This refers to schools that are struggling with performance regarding what plans are in place for parent participation in such schools that have a high at-risk population, and what is being done for struggling students to get them to help. The quickest answer for that in this particular context tonight is to go online, pick out the school that you're looking for, and pull that school up, read their school improvement plan. And before you leave tonight, find the principal of that particular school, because that's the individual that's going to give you the best answer to each of those questions, because the challenges vary. Even among those schools that struggle, the challenges vary greatly from one school to the next. And I would really encourage, that's the reason why we want the principals back in these meetings, so that they can drill down and give you those real specific responses. As far as the district goes, we have a strategic plan, and that would be your best place to start. If you've got a question about any of our elementary schools, you direct those to Tim. If you have questions about our secondary schools, you direct those to Mike.
Please consider moving the line near J. Dowdy Road. My kids at Carthage Elementary love it. Go on to say a little bit more about their family and their heritage continuing Carthage fourth generation. These are the specific types of feedback that we've been getting, like specific roads, and those are the things that we get deeper into the process. We're going to be looking at specific feedback around this and what we're finding still need to be made. And we appreciate this for consideration.
Okay, let's see. I've got a question and a comment. When changing the school district, what steps you're going to make? This is a little similar to the question that Tim answered earlier, to make sure that all schools have the same opportunities. Depending upon your perspective, you don't notice it, but we try to do that. But again, there's different demands at different schools. And a lot of that's driven by the number of children in the school where you see those opportunities. To the extent possible that we can, if a school wants a particular program, then we do as much as we can to get that program in that school. So it's actually more of a bottom-up process. I don't know how it may have been in the past, but the principals can tell you that if there's something that they want in their school, if they in their communities and their school improvement teams say, we need this, we want this, then we do everything we can. We do have budget constraints, though. We don't have a blank check that we can write, but we do the best that we can to that. So this process, particularly for some of our schools that haven't had as many students in the past, if we get some more students in those schools, some of those programs that they had when they had higher average daily memberships may come back that you've seen in the past. And I think that the clear example was people that have been in Union Pines who would be going to North Moore have been concerned particularly about the orchestra problem. And I got to tell you, that's on our radar screen. It's clearly on our radar screen, and it would really help if we had more children there that could take it there. But that's something we're going to be looking at real carefully as we go forward with the budget.
And this is very closely related to Dr. Grimsey's remarks there, noting the North Moore does currently offer orchestra. My child has been taking classes since 6th grade and wants to continue. This is very, very closely connected to what Dr. Grimsey said. This is all something we have to look at as we move through the equity of programs. And if you have additional students who attend a school, many times, as Dr. Grimsey noted, you're able to offer additional programs and additional offerings. So this is definitely something we have to look at as we move through the process.
Okay, there's a number of questions on this one. A couple of them have already been answered. Let me sift out a couple that are a little bit different than what we've heard before. Why did only the lines in the southern counties change? Why did only the lines in the southern counties change? That's simply because when we apply more impact from the efficiency principle, that had more of an effect when I say efficiency principle. Under efficiency, there's traffic congestion and there's bus route time. The impact of bus route times and traffic congestion had a more dramatic effect on the lines in the southern part of the county than they did in other parts of the county. So when you look at it, it's true. There was more changes in the southern end of the county, but that's because once we had draft one, we could really start evaluating the impacts of bus routes and traffic congestion. When we started seeing that, some things that we had in draft one weren't sustainable based on those factors. That impact didn't have as much dramatic effect in areas 1 and 2, and there may be other reasons, but that's the predominant reason why you saw so much more activity in the south than you did somewhere else. And then let's see, there was another one. This was another one that I think is a little bit different than the others. What if my child is in 10th grade and can't get a transfer? Well, if you can't get a transfer, that means you've exhausted the appeals process. So that means it didn't fit the requirement of the policy, or as you can see, we're going to have some proposed policy revisions that will relate to the redistricting process. So no matter what your status is, no matter what you think about it, I always encourage everybody to use that transfer policy and take it to the limit. Simply because the administration rules that your transfer doesn't meet the policy requirement, what that means is the administrator is confined by policy, but the school board's appeals committee has more flexibility than the administrator does, and it's designed that way. So please, if you do that and you're discouraged by that initial denial, don't stop there. If you've got a case to make, you still have that opportunity to make it before the school board's appeals committee, which is actually staffed by school board members.
And Dr. Griffith, this is my last question. How do you uproot kids that have been here all their life, same friends since kindergarten, that puts emotional stress on the kids? And that's something that we take very seriously. It's tough. It's always tough when a child experiences change. But change is going to happen. We have to move through reassigning some students and moving the attendance zone, but we're trying to make that as consistently as we can, as fairly as we can, to look at all the data and all the information. It is tough. That also relates somewhat to Dr. Remesy's comment about the transfer policy. It's still available. And we encourage you to utilize that and pay attention to the proactive transfer policy, piece of the policy that we proposed and considered by the board, and the grade completion process of that transfer policy.
And I have two more cards that repeat the same concern that Dr. Locklear mentioned earlier about J. Dowdy Road. So we've got that on the radar screen to follow up on. Another one that also affirms the concern about balanced programs across different schools. And then this one I have to read because this one I have never read one like this before. I appreciate the hard work and dedication to a difficult process. I am a Moore County native and respect the growth and changes that have to be implemented as this county grows. So I had to read that one because I hadn't had one like that before. So if you permit me, that's the last one we have. Jim, anything else?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, everybody. We do appreciate you coming. We've got the cards. We continue on with the process. Thank you very much.
Have a great evening.